you should be as involved in these conversations or as ticked off or as, excited as I am. I'm not even a producer. I'm not even an artist. There needs to be more songwriters and producers and artists who are willing to band together. The fact there's no organizing body I think is telltale. I'm not saying it would fix everything, but it would definitely help get the community a little bit more aligned in some of the pain points that I think a lot of people are seeing.
Yeah, I mean that's the exact what we're still fighting about, and it all can be solved with innovation. Just someone caring for a little bit, just sitting back and saying, okay, let's wipe the slate clean. Let's wipe the whiteboard. Let's wipe it clean. Let's start from scratch. Right? They have the power to do that.
BeatStars, the foundation, the precedence. We flying flags in every city, global residence. And we killing off the masters. Ghetto slave driving bastards. We making hits faster than you could think. We're on the brink of revolution. All my indie music makers, here's your restitution. We got the game in a chokehold. Not paying the creators is a no-no. I got the smoke road for all the fam bam.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Pay the Creators podcast. I'm Abe Batshon, the CEO of BeatStars, and today I got a special guest, an attorney, agent, artist and producer, advocate, entrepreneur. This guy's been advocating for music producers in the BeatStars community for many years, and I've kind of can't wait to pick his brain. This is the first time I'm actually meeting Karl in person. He's worked with the likes of Blxst, Junie, Turn Me Up YC, who's also one of our guys, Section 8. This dude has had the back of the community for a while. I'm so happy he's here in Austin, Texas with me. Welcome to the podcast, Karl Fowlkes.
I'm happy to be here, man. Happy to be here.
Appreciate you coming, man.
Yeah.
Before we get into work shit, because we can always get into work shit, but sometimes we don't just step back and talk about some of the things that make us who we are and some of the experiences that we've gone through, man. So I'm you're an interesting person within our community that I've always kind of wanted to sit down and really have a face-to-face with. So I'm glad we're doing it at the podcast. But first, man, please tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up. Give us a little origin story on Karl.
Yeah, I'm from South Jersey, which is 5-10 minutes from Philadelphia. So a lot of what happened in Philly spilled over to South Jersey. So and it's definitely marked by a city called Camden. Very very notorious city. And I spent most of my life outside of Camden, but I think you feel the spirit of Camden, Atlantic City, spots like that where I'm from. So South Jersey's an interesting place. I don't think a lot of people make it out or believe in themselves. So we have a couple people who made it, and we all know their names. Yeah, it's one of those places.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I remember watching, I don't know what TV show it was or documentary on Camden.
Yeah.
And it was kind of sickening how it was such a big police state in terms of surveillance, monitoring people's whereabouts, where they're going. People were just kind of locked in this virtual prison within the city behind these cameras and they had this whole, and then the police had this. Anyway, we don't have to get too deep into that, but it's kind of weird how that city was.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a guinea pig. I feel like for a lot of stuff. I remember they removed the central police force. They didn't have a Camden City police force. It was just Camden County Police. So there was a bunch of things that kind of try to curb the crime. Some of it worked, some of it really didn't work. So I think 10 years later, the city's probably still in the same place. And I think just like what's happening all across the country, it's just gentrification. You start seeing the semblances in certain apartment buildings popping up near the water, and you're just I feel like for me, I'm always just trying to advocate and tell people, yo, it's coming. Protect your assets or get aggressive. Let's keep it before other people take it.
Yeah, man, that's, to me, I'm sorry, man, because I kind of, I lived in Hayward, California, and there was a lot of crime in the East Bay where I grew up. And just hearing you talk about just casually people showing up in the water and death and crime, and just as if it's a normal thing for all of us to hear about and experience since we were little kids. That's That's some twisted shit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think that being exposed to those kind of stories, being exposed to the tribulations your community was experiencing, you think that had a part in kind of your career path and this advocacy that you do? Kind of, you feel like that's like,
you know,
feel
funny
like that
enough,
inspired you a little bit?
I mean, I think, you know, I come from a 2-parent household, and again, most of my life I spent, you know, in a town in Camden County that wasn't Camden, so I kind of had a different vantage point from a lot of people in the community. So I don't think it shaped me that way. I think. I think what really shaped me was probably just realizing how, you know, I think, you know, the community had just been so down. We're a culture and a community that's been just beaten down emotionally, spiritually. So we weren't, you know, I just wanted to change I wanted people to be more aggressive. Like, go get what you deserve. Like, stop, you know, we're not victims, right? You know, whether you are a victim or not, you know, you can't really sort of approach life with a victim mentality.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Like you had a problem with the leverage points.
Right.
And you had a problem. You saw like, you just didn't like that where people were in, you know, in bad positions to like defend themselves.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That bothered you.
Nah, for sure. I mean, yeah, you know, that's definitely one of the things, but I think for me, I was just like, you know, you gotta show people kind of there's a way, you know, and I think it's important that, like, you know, I teach, you know, I taught for 2 years after kind of getting established in the music business. I went back and taught at a local university, Rowan University, which is right inside, it's like a South Jersey university. Cool. So, you know, I'm working with these artists, I'm working with these producers, and I'm doing stuff maybe on a national scale, but like you'll see my face, like you'll see me at the mall. I think that's really, really important.
We're gonna get into that. That's the reason why you're here,
right?
Because if you didn't make yourself available and make yourself relatable to people, you're doing things unconventional, right? And I think it's important. You're doing it you did it the creator route, the independent.
I'm a creative, man. Come on,
for real.
Nah, I am for sure.
For real, and not a lot of people in your field kind of is operating that way. You know what I mean? They're kind of too reserved, working for these firms. But before all that, where did you, like, was there anybody in your family that was in the legal field? Nobody?
First lawyer.
First lawyer in the family.
Yeah, first lawyer in the family.
Damn, that's dope.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
It's cool. I mean, I think you feel like you're on the island a little bit. I think if you're going for certain goals, you know, I just felt like I was on an island to some extent because I didn't probably have no one helped me file my law school applications, and, you know, I'm trying to sign up for the LSAT and get the studying courses, and, you know, what should I do? You know, all that stuff was like outside the home or outside the community, and which is, you know, not what wasn't conventional for me. Yeah.
I mean, you're much more than a lawyer, though. Like, that's just part of the.
That's part of it. That's paperwork. You know?
Paperwork. But man, I had a cousin who was a lawyer, and dog, I used to see him study like crazy. The type of work ethic, the type of like dedication that you have to have, even if you're not enjoying it, the hard part. I mean, some people do enjoy it though. Like I know some lawyers that love to read, love to get deep and dig into the details of just like every little thing, because that's where you make your bread and butter, is actually like being that expert on that topic, right? Do you feel like that work ethic that you had to put yourself through in school, and then also I think, you know, you were heavy into sports too, right? What part of that do you take with you through your everyday living right now?
Yeah, no, I think there's always a prerequisite, you know, I think just to even get, you know, a B, right, in law school. There's just like a level of work you have to put in, which is probably more thorough than, you know, other school. I think the only other industry I probably would say that is a different beast is, you know, med school. You know, anybody trying to even take an MCAT, they're just like, you know, the MCAT's a whole different animal. And you're talking about science courses, things like that. So, I mean, for law, it's really just reading, you know, and, you know, writing, reading comprehension, writing analysis, all that stuff. So I think if naturally you're good at that, or I think it's tough to pick that stuff up. I think it's hard to learn how to be a good lawyer, or, you know, and you can improve your reading comprehension, but for some people that's just not their strong suit, right? So I think early on in your law school process, you learn whether you have those reading comprehension skills or you don't. Yeah.
You always been reading?
Yeah, I was. My dad. I remember me and my brother. We lived in like a 3-bedroom kind of apartment, condominium, and me and my brother shared rooms like for majority of our life because my dad had like a book room, like a library.
Don't touch the library.
Yeah, don't touch the library. Then we got older. I was like, come on, man, you got to, we got to get this library out the paint. We can't. We too big to just be sharing a room.
Would he go in there and like pick stuff out for you guys to read?
He would more so just say what you for the longest time in my life I thought I was going to be an architect. So I read, I was reading architecture books from 10 years old to 18, like really seeking those classes out, seeking those like extracurriculars, and so we go to the stores or we order like these like AutoCAD, CAD's the programming. Yeah. So I was proficient in CAD probably at like 15, 16 years old. And that was just him just kind of supporting whatever. All right, you want to be architect here. Here are the best architecture schools, So there was support in that regard.
That's dope. Yeah. That's dope. So encourage you to develop a skill, man, at a young age. That's dope. You could probably take with you, everywhere. With
For sure.
Just developing skills. It don't matter what you do.
Yeah, I agree.
At a law school, did you go straight to working into Bloomberg, or where did you start? Where did you start your career?
Yeah, my law school journey was funny, man, because I think all through law school I wanted to work in entertainment. I just couldn't crack. I couldn't crack in. It was just really I couldn't get. There was no BeatStars for me to intern at, or so I just didn't get that opportunity. So I did a lot of weird stuff in law school. Like I was a legal intern for the MTA in New York, which was like
that's the transportation. Right?
It's like the subway. I was a legal intern for the subway, which was crazy. And then I was like a legal intern for like the district attorney's office, in Jersey. So it was like stuff that I'm completely not doing. So after, I didn't really have the resume that would put me in a position to like probably get one of those entertainment jobs. So I thought, I just wanted to get in corporate transactional stuff. So I worked at this like fintech mortgage loan company as a staff attorney for about 8 to 9 months before I jumped over to Bloomberg.
Got it.
So at this time I wasn't even thinking about, producers, artists. I was just trying to get some good legal experience.
Yeah, just get some experience.
Yeah.
Was there any challenges in any of those? In any of those jobs that you could you're like, okay, I really learned a lot here. There was like some big challenges I had to tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about home, the mortgage lending, the rules surrounding mortgage laws or homeowner laws, and I mean, some of those laws are just very important for us to know as like human beings on earth. Like,
for sure.
I think later in my life they've definitely come into play, just giving friends advice or trying to get my own place, but. Yeah, I mean, just learning I had no mortgage lending or all those laws surrounding real estate.
You want to know
something funny? Yeah. Oh.
I was a loan officer.
Oh no! Yeah. I used to help with I used to help with licensing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like for that ran through the legal department, like licensing.
I
for the
couldn't get no one to get a loan from me, bro. I couldn't get no one for a whole year.
It was tough, man. And it's also most people aren't qualified, and it's like you try to sneak people through. Then underwriting probably just.
I was too nice.
Yeah.
I was too nice. You have to be like a sales asshole to be super aggressive to get
a loan. That's funny.
Loan.
Man.
I couldn't do it. I was like, you know what? I can't make people get a loan and go into debt. And I was like, I quit. I can't do it.
When did you do that?
I was like 19 years old, I think.
Wow.
Probably like 19. Yeah. I was a kid. I was doing it. I forget the name of the place I was at, but it was some family owned loan. Anyway, beyond that, we're away. We moved up. We moved up from the loan business. But how dope to be like named Bloomberg Law 40 under 40, and also like had some experience there too, man.
Yeah.
Like. That's a full circle moment. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was, at that time, I was just crazy, man. I was just like, I remember I also got through school quickly. Like, I was 21 when I graduated undergrad. Then I graduated law school. I think I was 23 or 24. So I was just super young. I was just, And I had that first experience. So I was probably like 24 and living in South Jersey. You know, the one company I was talking about was based in Philly. So I was like, I just can't do anything I want to do in this area. I need to go to New York. So I just moved. I quit that job. Didn't have Bloomberg lined up. Moved to my boy's couch. And right in the Upper West Side, you know, which was a nice couch, right? It's Upper
It's a
West
good
Side.
couch.
Yeah, it's a good couch to be on. And, you know, I was just applying to jobs, and I got the Bloomberg gig, you know, doing like contract negotiations, corporate law. Cool. And it was a great experience. I didn't leave on bad terms. They wanted me to, you know, extend my contract. It was like a very fruitful, and being in that building every day, I think that was probably the seed that made me feel like, all right, like, you know, I like Bloomberg, but I kind of want to be Bloomberg. Yeah. You know, I think it's going to be really tough for me to just, like, you know, I can get really comfortable inside this building.
You know what's crazy? BeatStars spends, you know, corporations, we have to spend a lot of money on legal, you know, trademarks, defending our marks, you know, corporate legal stuff.
Yeah, corporate governance, yep.
Yeah, like we spend probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, bro. Like sometimes I get those bills and I'm like, God damn. But at the end of the day, I feel like our legal team is protecting us and they're taking care of us and they're looking out for us and you don't want to have that worry when you're an entrepreneur. You don't want to have that worry all the time, like, oh, are we compliant, right? Are we doing things the right way? Are we going after the things that are ours? You know what I mean? And so lawyers get a bad rap sometimes, man.
It's a red category, though, right?
Yeah,
I talk about green and red. You know, things that help you, help you earn more money. Those are the sexy, cool people in the building, and then there's like the red category, the guys who aren't really helping you get money. Yeah. And it could be. I think it is a tough analysis though for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, a lot of people are just like, I don't care if we're not compliant. Like, you know, I think there's a bunch of companies who just operate in that space. I don't like that. Yeah.
Even artists and producers, sometimes they'll just like be so disrespectful to their lawyer, right. And because they're costing them so much money. Right. And I'm like, yo.
Wrong way to think about it.
Yeah, man. That's insurance. That's your insurance policy. Those people looking out for you, man.
They are, and if you know. You don't want to go down that totem pole, that list, or they stop answering your calls, and you know that's not what you want.
Yeah, I got a whole
because you're gonna need a lawyer.
I got a whole different respect now for lawyers, for sure, for sure. Right. When did you first realize that this? Well, I think it kind of started out with this underserved online community of producers, sure. Right? Yeah. When did you first? While you were working your 9 to 5, were you also kind of like hearing the horror stories, kind of like learning about the music? Because you said you always loved music, you wanted to be in entertainment, just didn't know where your niche was going to come from. Where were you gonna be your first penetration point? Yeah. So who was that first producer or first situation? You're like, oh, these guys are getting treated like shit. Yeah, and a lot of stuff's happening to these guys and girls. You know.
Yeah, I'll say three things. I'll say first, I was like, I'm actually not a music purist. I actually never saw myself working in the music industry. That wasn't like the plan. It was probably to kind of get some experience in entertainment, but like, you know, being an entrepreneur, getting a product or something like that. Second thing I'll say is I kind of left this out the story. A lot of my buddies in New York were like A&Rs or, you know, a lot of people I was running with were, you know, they were signing artists. So I was already 1 foot, you know, in that, like, hey, I'm a lawyer. You know, there was like, yo, my guy needs a lawyer. And I was always kind of like, no, you know, I don't really, that's not my thing. I'm trying to climb this corporate ladder or whatever I was, you know, on at that time.
It was a secure route.
Yeah. And then, you know, at some point it was just like, all right, like, you know, there's 5,000 lawyers for 5,000 artists and producers for every one lawyer. Like they're just not being serviced.
Too much.
It's too many. And there's like, you know, there's like 20 attorneys that everyone cycles through. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity analysis I'm doing in my head that like there's 20 probably lawyers that people go to. Like there's space for another one. Not only is there space, like my practice would probably blossom very quickly. And, you know, so I think that stuff started happening. And yeah, one of the first things I think that came across was like one of my boys just like, hey, you know, I got a producer, you know, he needs a lawyer. And then just working with that producer and artist, I was like, man, this is crazy. How are you even like eating? Like, you know, like how are you feeding, you know, yourself and, you know, anybody else around you? And I think that just sparked it. Yeah.
That's when I had that, you know, the realization for BeatStars. It was like you said, talking to these producers and hearing about how limited they were in making money, how many opportunities, how lack of opportunities, and how they were getting jacked for these work for hire contracts. And
$1,000, $500.
I was like, you guys are professional? Yeah. I was like, this is what you call your profession?
Yeah.
And it didn't make sense to me, man. I'm so happy you experienced that.
Yeah, so as soon as I was like, this is crazy. And then it just started happening, right? You just start, putting out rhetoric or educational materials. Because I think that's first. Like, most producers you have one conversation with them, you don't even know how you should be getting paid. Like, you don't even know that, that should be in advance, and on your future royalties. Yeah. You don't even know maybe what's standard. And if you're dealing with an independent artist, how can you collect your, maybe, you can collect your royalties still. Then there's the pub side and
so much.
So I was like, first, let's raise the education, because I think just people don't know enough, and you can't really collect or, if you don't know what you're missing, then you're never going to get to that bag. Yeah.
For sure, man. And for years, I've been doing this for 14 years, man. And for years, and with the advent of social media, you start hearing these horror stories. You start hearing like producers talking about, I got robbed here, I got jacked here, I got taken advantage here. And there's more cases where they're not talking about what happened to them because it's kind of embarrassing. So they don't. A lot of producers don't talk about the things they went through. And so when I would meet them in person, I would hear about these kind of deals they would get themselves into, and then also just how they couldn't afford legal representation to go and get their copyrights that had been stolen from them, and for a long time, lawyers in the music industry have been so aligned and so dependent on the business from all of the major labels. They've been dependent, and so
they still are.
A lot of them are,
and
so they couldn't really have an honest conversation and representation for the copyright holders, and then especially for the producers, and so they would just neglect their business. They wouldn't even take them on. They wouldn't even care, you know. And it bothered me, man. It really, really bothered me. And then I saw you on Twitter. Probably is where kind of I think probably Twitter was where you kind of stepped on to the scene, started giving advice, and start educating, and the comments and statements you were making were resonating with people, and they were genuine. And I was like, oh, this guy's giving out some really good advice. Why is this lawyer on Twitter, dude?
Right.
Why? I was like, why is this lawyer on Twitter? Why aren't all lawyers on Twitter?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
it was my competitive edge. You talk about some of these big law firms. I was like, my marketing is not going to be their marketing. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't. It's just not how I'm going to get the clients.
Lawyers don't do marketing in the first place.
They
just put up billboards. They put billboards.
In entertainment, it's you don't even have a website half the time. Some of these law firms that get all the business don't even.
Right.
If you go to their website, it might be a one pager.
Right.
But so that also kind of struck me as people holding on to a model that just wasn't going to be future. I think the future of lawyers probably we're going to get cut in half. This isn't a lifelong in entertainment law. I don't think so. Yeah,
possible.
On the way out.
Think so.
I think so.
But you kind of offset that with different things that you're working on, and then you're also scaling with education, and you're doing different things, and you're getting in at the right time when you need to get in at the right time, know?
Right, which is why I would never feel threatened about saying the right thing or doing the right thing, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of myself as a 30-year attorney. It's a very taxing practice. It's very tough. If you're not ready for it's a contact sport, I call it. It's a sport of contact. Every single day you're dealing with the aggressive email.
Yeah.
You get some crazy letters coming in. You got clients who are dealing with emergencies, right? So it's just it's a recipe for burnout.
And sometimes you're dealing with giants too. It gets exhausting.
Oh yeah.
It gets exhausting.
You feel, threats I've had, against me, you feel oh shoot, man,
They don't like that this dude's independent.
Yeah, they don't I'm trying to squash him. They're trying to, badmouth me to my clients, all sorts of stuff.
Because everyone else has been in their pockets.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, I don't really.
Everyone else has been aligned
Yeah.
with the message, with the deal terms. Yeah. Everyone else got the.
Everyone I don't live in Hollywood. I live in Jersey,
exactly.
man. That's why I'm like, I don't know what they got going on.
I love
I'm in
that,
Jersey,
bro.
yeah.
And that's why you're here.
Right.
Because I like talking to people that want to disrupt shit and you know, bring humanity into their practice, man. Bring humanity into their practice. And it's so interesting because you're saying, oh, I got on Twitter. You know, I'm like, where are the lawyers on Twitter? They're not there. But you're communicating with this generation of young creators that in the past, you know, prior to the advent of licensing online and just online creative, all content and all these pieces of intellectual property that are being created, you know, the high value pieces of intellectual property in the past were not created by these young kids on the internet. That was not happening. Yeah. You know, and so today you're seeing it done at scale and you're seeing it done in crazy volume, and you're seeing these like producers, you know, with some of them you never even heard their fucking name have these like multi-platinum records and collaboration, and you know, has kind of like the barriers have been broken, and so you dove in and waved a flag for these guys and girls and said, yo, I'm here, just letting y'all know. Right. And you stepped out to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think it was like, for me, you know, I think it was two things, right? For me, it was creating a sales funnel, right? Because, you know, end of the day, for me to run my business and for me to even compete, there's a bunch of producers who might not be ready for an attorney from a financial perspective, but they had some needs, right? And their needs might be, you know, I don't know how to collect my publishing, so I don't know how to, like, what's a trademark versus a copyright. That's free game. That's information that you might be able to Google and it still might not make sense. I'm trying to help you understand that, you know, and, you know, in turn, you know, I'm creating a relationship with you. I'm serving you, the community. I think if you're going to eat off a community or eat with the community, like, you got to serve that community, right? So, you know, that was my way of, like, hitting people maybe I'll never work with, but also in the meantime, you know, I'll give you some game now that even by the time you even come to me or another attorney, your situation is not so screwed up that, you know, nobody wants to deal with it, right? So that was my approach, yeah.
Yeah, we live in this world of just, like, you know, hoarding information, hoarding experience, hoarding information, and we don't want to share it with people. And I think that's what set you apart, man. People thought, you know, people looked at you like, honestly, like, you look like them. Right. You're coming from within their community as well too, right. And you know, and you're a music fan, and you consider yourself a creative in the way your business approach is, and so you had a lot of great things going for you, man. One thing that, you know, you just don't see is you don't see a lot of African American lawyers that are doing this kind of stuff successfully, you know, independently. Right. You don't see it. So first, I just want to applaud you on representing your community and showing other creatives and showing other people, you know, what's possible. Right. And so I love that. I love that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Been talking to these producers for so long, and like, you know, they're always hitting us up for legal advice, and they're always hitting us up for, like, can you help us do this? Help us do that. I'm like, man, we're not lawyers. You know, we're not lawyers. We can't help you with all this stuff. We try as much as we can internally, but like you said, it's taxing. Yeah.
Shout out to Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle, man.
Yeah, shout out to Kyle.
Kyle helped me put some stuff together for you for this interview, because he's
good dude.
What?
Yeah, good.
Kyle
dude.
is an amazing guy and loves the community so much, and I think he aligns on your values.
Nah, he's a good
dude.
Man. Yep.
Yeah, you guys keep in touch a little bit?
Yeah, y'all got a good one, yeah.
Oh, love Kyle. Yeah. Love him. But, like, what you're doing, too, is, like, you're a marketer, man. Like, you're for real. Like, you're a marketer. And, you know, lawyers are usually not marketers. And you're approaching the game operationally and also from a marketing perspective like an artist. Like, you're you know, taking high quality photos, you're having conversations everywhere you can, you're getting on podcasts, you're being yourself. You built this brand, you know, in a fairly quick amount of time, man. In a fairly quick amount of time.
For me, it felt like a long time, but
for sure. Try waiting the amount of years I waited until I paid myself my first check. Okay.
No, I feel that.
Stressful.
I feel that.
Stressful. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, from outside looking in, for anyone to build any type of like successful business, you know, within a couple years, man, it's like it's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think was the driving factor really behind all that?
I mean, honestly, I think it was getting up to speed from a subject matter perspective. Like, you know, I think music law is tough, but it's not the toughest, right? I mean, they're like tribe patent law. Like, you know, having, you know, there's so many other mergers and acquisitions, M&A. Like, there's some really brutal forms of law. Music law, you know, for everybody out there, you know, who might be watching this, who's thinking about going to law school, like it's, you know, that's something you could do that. You could learn the game fairly quickly. And there's nuances that you'll keep learning over time. And maybe some of the, you know, older attorneys might school you, you know, every now and then. But so I was able to get my subject matter expertise up quick. And then like the cost of the overhead and, you know, and it's kind of like producers now, right? What's the cost of making a beat and selling it, you know, everywhere internationally? It's like, you know, back in the day, it was really tough. Like you actually had to get in the studio, get your beats played, you know, develop that one-on-one relationship with the artist. Now you can send you can download the demo of Fruity Loops, you know, make a beat, pull it off, sell it, and, you know, upload it to BeatStars. Some random artist, you know, pulls the beat from BeatStars, and, you know, all of a sudden you're in the game. So I think just the cost of running a business in 2022, you know, no matter what industry it is it's just gotten so much cheaper.
Yeah, for sure.
So much cheaper.
God, I always tell people, man, I wish we had these opportunities when I was younger, man. It was not there.
Yeah, it wasn't there. You know, everybody, you know, it's just so true. This is definitely a golden age, and, you know, I guess in technology and entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Yes, everyone could be an entrepreneur, man. It's amazing. It's amazing. You're big on education. You said you teach. Right. You're a professor.
Right.
And you're always providing educational tools and content on your website, and, you know, for the community. I know you said as part of your marketing tactic. I know it's part of your inbound marketing, but at the same time, is there another, like, you know, genuine reason why you want to do those kind of things?
And the reason why I even say that, because I hate when people lie and say it was all for like justice and look,
for sure,
I get it. Like, I think 80% of it, you know, for me was just like, there are people who just, and it's not going to affect my bottom line, who just don't know this information, and I can give it to them. Yeah. Right. I think that's a large part of it. I think the 20% was probably creating that marketing channel, but the other part was like really just, again, you know, I think about community building. You know, building a community without compromise. You can't build community without serving that community. Yeah. Like, you can't have people, if I drop a book tomorrow, who's going to buy it if I'm not really servicing that community? Mm-hmm. So I think that's like everybody if you're a producer out there and your brand is all about you and you're not giving game to other producers, or you're not putting out tutorials, or you're not helping people, you're probably, your community is probably going to be limited, right? You might have some fans who just like your beat quality, and you might be that upper echelon of just like, you know, hit maker. But if you're the average producer who is coming up and, you know, you got some placements and you're building your community, it's going to be hard to build that community without giving back to that community. Mm-hmm. So I just think services is the driving force of building any community. For sure. And I think, like, going through legal school and interning and becoming a lawyer and working your way in, and isn't there kind of like a culture of like doing pro bono work for people? There's like a we have to keep our bar. Yeah, there's a culture of giving back. You have to. It's like it's incorporated into your practice, right? Yeah, I have to do a certain amount of pro bono. In Jersey, sadly enough, like they put me on like criminal cases, which, you know, now it's exposing me to like a whole other group of problems that I'm like, you know, actually, just when you got comfortable. And I'm like, oh shoot, you know, maybe I'll be able to help, you know, on this side of the world. Yeah, that's cool. It keeps you kind of accountable. Yeah, keeps your work accountable, man. This one's from Kyle. Shout out to Kyle. He was asking, what are your thoughts on catalog sales in today's world of like all these producers and artists selling their copyrights? I don't mind it. I think what I guess bothers me is, you know, any company that could sell for $100 million, right? I mean, you think about that valuation. You think about a BeatStars valuation when you're trying to raise money. Mm-hmm. It's like you have a staff, you have an employees working that. I think, like, you know, Justin Timberlake's catalog, for example. I think that sold for a little bit over $100 million. It's like, if Justin had, and he might have a team, so, but and this is all rhetorical, but like if he hired a marketing guru, and had people servicing his likeness and all that other stuff, like, is it $100 million? It probably could be like a $500 million company, right? Because you're building a real ecosystem to it. So I think sometimes I feel like, I think it should show the next generation of creators that when you own something and you can put a valuation on something, you are actually a company and you can actually operate as such, and you'll probably in turn create more value for that company instead of just selling it for whatever because some of these catalogs you're seeing is like they just sold and there was really no structure or organization. They had nobody on their team trying to drive new sales funnels, new opportunities. Maybe they had an agent probably working the new stuff, but think about that. So it's just funny. I think it should show the next batch of creators that this is really, you're building companies and the bread's there if you do it the right way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's like from an investment standpoint, are these guys acquiring catalog just for the pure appreciation and increase of valuation year over year? Or, like you said, they're uncovering all these other licensing opportunities, these other things that's happening in the world today?
New media, man. Yeah. I mean, I think I saw when the labels do their sort of end of the year, profit, their statements, because some of them are public. You're looking at where the revenue's coming from sometimes, and each year new media is getting bigger. Roblox, TikTok, all that good stuff. It's just that category is just getting bigger and bigger. So I think that's a factor, but I also think that when you think about the publishing ecosystem in particular, I mean, you just saw, the Copyright Office, deny that appeal and approve the 15% increase for mechanical licenses, right? So now mechanical royalties are going up, so the publishing is making a little bit more. I honestly think that number is going to jump a little bit more. I also think that songwriters and producers while it's never going to be even, they're going to get a little bit closer. And so I think there's some value that's going to happen from songwriter and producer advocacy that also make those publishing catalogs a little bit more valuable. And it's happening.
Yeah, I see that. For the first time, right? For the first time, kind of like, people are actually going to Washington and, pushing for these changes. You know what I mean?
I think about this is something that I'm just looking at, and I think it's not going to stay this way. I think when $1 of revenue is generated from Spotify, I think 57 cents roughly goes to the master holder. Like 30 stays with Spotify, and only 13% goes to publishers.
It's really low.
That just feels. It just doesn't pass the eye test, right? I think. Yeah. Naturally there's opportunity, and I think that's going to, Spotify should never get paid more than a song. They're a service provider. Like, how are Spotify getting paid more than than the publishers and the songwriters? It doesn't make sense, right? So I think there's going to be some opportunity for blatant things that don't make sense to kind of make those publishing catalogs a little bit more valuable in the next 10 years.
I'm just sitting here smiling, admiring those words. Yeah. I'm just sitting here smiling, admiring those words because, and I guess that's why you kind of always see the pushback from people like Spotify and how, they're creating this kind of they're creating an enemy now with the songwriters and producers, even in the press, and they're blatantly saying, they want to actually decrease. Yeah. They want to decrease their.
Yeah, they don't want to. The mechanicals, they want it to stay. They're like, yo, no. Yeah. It's expensive to run it. And their thought process, it's expensive to run this company, and we've provided value. We saved you guys from that era in time where you remember the gap where everything was getting pirated and record sales weren't happening, physicals weren't selling, but no, this is just what was going to happen. Eventually the music industry was going to digitize. You're not the savior. Yes.
Let's forecast a little bit then. There's going to be this friction that exists. Right. Rights holders are continuously pushing and moving, and now there's bigger money that have interest in these rights now. These huge investors, these huge banks. You're talking like some of the biggest private equity firms in the world now are acquiring copyrights now. They've never done this shit before, and so you know what their goal is. So, what do you think is going to change? What do you think is going to change in the landscape of it? Are these all-you-can-eat streaming consumption services? Are they going to have to pivot their business models? Which it looks like they are already. I mean, right? They're already like
acquiring podcasts.
What? It's all podcasts on Spotify now. You know, they work directly with the creator with the podcast. I don't have to worry about the labels and the rights holders. They can dictate the terms, whatever they want.
They work for hire it, and they just all the content just lives on their platform.
They're loving that shit. They're loving that shit. And what's going to end up happening is music will go down in the priority list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to, because it's expensive. Paying royalties out for Spotify is really, really expensive. It cuts at their bottom. That's the only thing really cutting out their bottom line. So they're like, oh, we'll acquire these podcasts and all that stuff because I'll pay for that one time. I pay one time for that content, but I don't owe you a royalty. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Okay, we're going. Let's go deeper into the whole royalty thing. Now you got, I got a phone call from, I think it was the CEO of SoundCloud at one point a few years ago, and his business development team, and they had pitched me this new. They wanted my, because we're a SoundCloud partner label, one of the earliest ones, and they had pitched us this new royalty structure where it was not based on like the market share. So it was like if I pay $10 a month for the music service and I listen to just Tupac's going to get all my money, not shared with the rest of the the whole market share scheme that's happening on Spotify.
Right.
I got on that call and I was like, yes, fuck yes, thank you, please, thank you. I was like, do this. You're doing us a favor, And I really pushed and encouraged them to do that. And I was happy that they actually went through with it too after those conversations. And SoundCloud has kind of been a service that's had its really hot peak moment in terms of music discovery, and BeatStars was a big part of that with the Abe Boogies and with the hoodies, and we were doing his SoundCloud monetization. Same thing with Lil Pump in the early days when they were just young artists buying beats on BeatStars, putting us stuff on SoundCloud, and I saw the revenue, I saw their revenue potential, and I was like, man, that's awesome. There's some cool independent revenue potential here for independent artists on SoundCloud. What are your thoughts on this new shift in their payment model?
I think it's definitely a good start. I mean, I think when you think about Spotify and the way it even happened, and we embraced this new age backwards, right? Spotify had to beg, the labels and then all these other people to get on, right? That they had to beg. It wasn't an easy transition. It was what is this weird company? And then obviously they brought some of the right stakeholders in, and Troy Carter's of the universe who kind of helped. Maybe bridge the gap with the labels. So because
there was already a million streaming services before them, it was already happening.
It was already happening, right? Yeah. So the royalty model, they didn't build this royalty model to sort of help the the be transparent. I think it kind of just each year it's been probably took shape in a different direction. Mm-hmm. So I think out of all things, that was probably the least thing that they were intentional about. And I think that's clear, right? I think the pooling method of royalties, and there's a guy named Jeff Price. And I'll shout Jeff out. He spoke to my class.
That's the founder of TuneCore?
Yeah.
Back in the day?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Jeff Rice is the founder of TuneCore. And now he just founded Spoken Giant, I think it is. And it's the company that is fighting now for comedy royalties to be paid out. Mm. So this guy's just he is an advocate, and he is an information giver. And he just doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care. So Jeff Price posted the definitive guide to Spotify royalties. It's free. It's up there right now. It's and I give it to all my college students. Yeah. It goes through how, and basically you leave by saying, oh, they're just they're making this stuff up. Like this isn't like there was like they're accounting. You know, I feel this way about labels too. But like I know I'm like there is no account. You just made this formula up. This is like not backed by anything. This is crazy.
No models.
No model. It's like it's like yo, how could it just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
And then you think about the stakeholders involved, and you're like, okay, like you know.
Yo, people may hold on. Let's stop real quick because people might start thinking, "Oh, why is Abe and Karl complaining?
Right.
Why are they complaining so much?" No, it's not. We're not complaining. We care about artists.
Yeah.
We care about like this is where they make their livelihood. If they can, if they even could get a shot at making a livelihood, right?
What if the trash man on your street didn't come today? Wouldn't you complain? Or they were very efficient. They were dropping trash on the street, like in your neighborhood. This if you're a producer, you're an artist, or anybody listening, it's like why wouldn't you care?
Gotta care.
You gotta care. That's like life. That's just, you have to care.
You gotta care who's taking care of your babies.
Yeah.
You're giving your babies to these people.
Yeah, you're right. Like,
you know what I'm saying?
And you're trying to eat. You're trying to like. This is your way of eating.
Yeah.
You should be as involved in these conversations, or as ticked off, or as excited as I am. Like I'm not even a producer. I'm not even an artist.
Yeah.
And it's good that but it has to. A lot of these movements have to be inspired in, there needs to be more songwriters and producers and artists who are willing to band together. I think the fact that there's no players union or, and I know there's been conversations about, producer union or the fact there's no organizing body I think is telltale, right? Not saying it would fix everything, but it would definitely help get, the community a little bit more aligned in some of the pain points that I think a lot of people are seeing.
Yeah. And BeatStars could help be a part of that and kick that off.
You have to be a part of it. You have to be a part of it
because I mean that's the exact what we're still fighting about, and it all can be solved with innovation. Just someone caring for a little bit, just sitting back and saying, okay, let's wipe the slate clean. Yeah. Let's wipe the whiteboard. Let's wipe it clean. Let's start from scratch. Right? They have the power to do that. And I think, when BeatStars, when we first came out in 2008, 2009, we were frowned upon. We were frowned upon.
I remember that.
Yeah, there was some producers they were like, no. What do you mean you're going to sell a beat for $25? Right. What do you mean you're going to sell a beat for $50, right? You're devaluing our craft. I got, man.
I remember. Yeah.
Motherfuckers were like, I had to hear a lot of shit. And a lot of it was like behind my back too. And I just wish a lot of motherfuckers would just call me.
Yeah.
Let me explain to you what we're trying to do, dog.
Right.
Let me just can I just give you my elevator pitch? Can I just tell you what we're trying to do? There's a bigger cause here. Yeah. We're taking back power. Yeah. Can you just let me innovate? Like, can I help?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and it's okay. Like, I understood that, with everything that changes, there's always going to be resistance. And I know that, people are operating in their little silos and, they're making, it's like that real selfish mentality. Like, oh, I'm making money. I'm good. What?
I'm getting 20,000.
It's like you're not even part of this community.
I'm getting 20,000 a beat.
It's like you're not even a producer.
Yeah.
It's like when you said like we should care about all these things, like we should care about how our music is monetized. It got to a point where the egos and the producers in the game didn't even associate themselves with their community of creators. Like they didn't even fucking exist, didn't even think about them.
It still happens. I still look at people who are looking at everything comes out of their mouth as like a weird thing about the community, a producer community or something like. And I'm like, come on, this isn't helping. Like, this isn't helping.
Yeah, man. And there's always infighting and there's always theft and there's people. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. But you know what? I'm glad I didn't let none of that shit stop us from going and moving.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think a testimony, and I've always told you this, is like, a producer having a 3,000 or 4,000 more in their pocket, per month, allows them to make a little bit better decision about, you know, the agreements that are coming in. You don't got to sell this beat for $500 and just give it to some artist. Like, you don't have, like, you just made $10,000 on that beat. Like, why don't you keep it up? And they can have, you know, non-exclusively. But so the taking the power. So much of this is just like a, you know, it's a financial conversation too. It's part of taking the power back. You know, that I see it as like, you know, you can make better decisions when you have more money in your pocket. That's just a reality.
100%.
Yeah.
When you're broke, you're saying yes to everything, anything, you know. That's a whole different, you know, playing field that you're on. When you don't need the money. I mean, I've seen producers on BeatStars turn down $25K, $30K for a beat. I've seen producers turn down $50K.
Yeah. So, like,
you know why? Because that producer is making $50K a year just off that one beat on BeatStars. So they're like, doesn't make sense. This is a product of my catalog. It's going to be continually making me passive income, recurring income. Why would I want to remove products from my catalog?
Yeah.
And
I also think that should be, that's not that if you're a label and you're offering $1,000 and your pitch is, because a lot of it's like, wait, there's a batch of artists where I think most producers would objectively just be like, okay, like if the artist wanted it for $1,000, I'm going to get my return on the back end 30 times over. A lot of the artists and moments that they're telling these kids to take their beats down for are for, you know, the cost, you know, opportunity cost benefit analysis doesn't make sense. So, you know, I always say, like, you know, and then, like, you think about major, it's almost even better to sell your beat to an independent artist who's doing okay. Because, like, you at least via DistroKid, you can just get your DistroKid money and, you know, directly, and you'll get your royalties.
Exactly.
You know, as opposed to, like, you know, you give that to a label, you know, you'll never see your points. Yeah.
Exactly, man. So, exactly. I think, you know, the collaboration piece, even sharing on the master side, that's got to happen more frequently and at a higher percentage probably, you know, especially if it's like you're investing in a low-cost production, because that's what's happening now with the labels. Some of the producers are not willing to sell the exclusive, so they're being forced to license that production from the producers non-exclusively for major projects. Yeah. And then there's some, listen, we've made a lot of progress. There's a lot of progress happening compared to what it used to be. You know, I mean, compared to what it used to be. I remember publishing deals from some of the major publishers. And listen, nothing against them, man. Listen, we're just talking facts. I remember some of the major publishers were signing some of our producers.
Trying to get some of that money, right?
Well, they were restricting them from selling online no more. They're like, hey, you're gonna sign this, like.
I remember those. I remember that. Yeah, that used to happen. Every producer I was on, like, that's just not gonna happen. But right. So there was a moment where producers had to give up their ability of self-determination, give up their ability to build their own businesses, and just so they can have those opportunities, you know. But. Yeah, I've had pub companies say, I want a piece of that. You don't got to stop.
Yeah,
but you know, I just want a piece of that too.
Yes, yep. That's happening. Yeah. But I'm seeing the compromise happen more often now, and I'm seeing that people are understanding that these young people are building businesses, and they've already built it before we even got into the picture, and we have to continue allowing them to do that. And so these terms are being carved out of their publishing agreements, and it's awesome, bro.
And the
facts
are that when we're talking about publishing, and when someone sells their beat on BeatStars, you know, it's more equivalent to an advance, or, you know, for the master. And usually some of these songs are still getting registered, and, you know, on the PROs, and the pub companies are still getting their cut because the songs are getting registered, right? Yeah. It's like you're not even. A lot of my argument is like, that's not even your fight. Like you don't even have rights to that side of the coin. You don't get none of the producer advances. You don't get any of the producer fees. Why would you think that you're going to?
I got to ask you a question. I'm just curious your take on it, because, you know, sometimes I don't know what the outside perception is of stuff. You know, BeatStars, you know, we did our partnership with Sony Music Publishing, right? And for the first time, a major publisher tapped into an online community technologically and was able to start, administering songs and registering songs at scale for the first time in history. It's never been done. I don't know of any major that's tapped into any technology platform that's creating songs or I think it's the first time it's been done.
Right.
But previously in the past, the business model has never been, especially at the major publishers, has never been kind of like, let's sign everything, let's register everything, let's put everything through the system. That wasn't a thing,
Right.
And it was they were very strategic about who they worked with and who they signed, who had admin deals. And what are your thoughts on what we did there, man? I'm just like, sometimes because you're an entertainment lawyer, you deal with creators, and I'm just like, from the outside, and you're an industry kind of like expert, what's going on, you're reading into everything. Like, what were your thoughts on like us opening the door for that to happen?
Yeah, I thought it was a good thing, and I think you hit on something that I think really hasn't been done, which is kind of the tech piece, and like, a lot of these large scale pub companies should be embracing the thought of registering all songs, and being a part of all songs should be registered. I don't know if that's my tagline, but I genuinely believe all songs should be registered. So how we get there, it has to be a collaborative, and the people who have the tech, the people who are, that's the important thing. They have the powers that be, as much as I might hate them, or not don't, but as much as I might have friction with them, they are always and usually in the best position from a data, from a monetary, from every other perspective to take that risk to help the rest of the community. So I thought it was a good partnership, and it definitely moves us toward that goal of getting all songs registered. Yeah. Okay,
Karl approves. Thank God. All right, let's get into some of the stuff that you're working on. Man, you were working with Blxst, and I follow you. I've been following you on social media for a long time, and I discovered him through you.
Oh, that's awesome. Blxst, come on, man.
I discovered him through you. He was not really, he didn't really have that many fans yet when you first started working with him.
Yeah.
Like, what made you be a fan and want to work with him early on, so early? Like, what was happening in his career that you were like, I want to work with this dude?
For me, it was instant. I remember, in my relationship, everyone's always like, I was a Jersey dude, business partners, and started a label, and co-founded a label with the dude from LA. And I heard the music one day, and this was early in my entrepreneurship journey. I'm talking about one of the days I left Bloomberg. I'm talking it was in those days. It was early. And I left Bloomberg, and I just was going release radar on Spotify, and the song just popped up.
Damn.
And then I just looked at, I just went through a rabbit hole, and I was like, this guy is intentional. The art, from the graphics to, and it kind of spoke to me just on large scale. I was like, yo, you don't even have to have that much money to put out in a consistent brand. And he was just doing it, and I was just like, this guy just needs a little help. Some people just need a little help. I think a lot of executives toot their horn about what they've done for artists, and it's always about them in articles, but it's like, nah, somebody like Backlash just needed just a little bit of help. He needed some operational help. He needed someone that was going to help him enhance some of the stuff he was doing. And he found his manager first, Vic, who's, we own Eagle together, me, Blxst, and Vic. He found Vic first, and, they always talk about it. They thought they were going to meet an old white guy. What Vic thought he was, because Blxst didn't tell him, I was a young black kid. So I fly out to L.A., literally.
Who's this lawyer?
Yeah, so Vic's manager, he's kind of I don't know. I thought this dude was about to come in a suit, old white dude. And, I flew out to L.A. probably a week after I heard that the song. Just on some, I wasn't doing. That was that was working capital dollars I needed. So I flew out, no guarantee. And from that day, we just sort of, locked in from from an energy perspective, but also just the things that we want to do in and outside the industry. Because the music business is just a vehicle. I think, you think about impact, and each year you start getting more visible or aware of some of the things going on in your community and the world.
Yeah.
That it's just so from a foundation aspect to a tech and VC aspect, we were just all aligned about we're starting here, but we're going to use our platforms and do other stuff. Yeah.
Yo, how dope was? I mean, he's still kind of. Is he still independent? Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone so everyone else calls him like I don't know. You know, we are a privately owned company, and obviously any deal we do, you know, Blxst, you know, owns his masters, owns his publishing, even on the that's just what it is.
Yeah.
But you need partners, you need vendors,
course,
you need people to you know, you need money, you need scaling dollars.
For sure.
So we partner with Red Bull, and you know, a company like Red Bull. That's why I say, like, people put us in the independent bucket, but it's Red Bull. Like, they have a lot of resources.
Yeah, a lot.
So I mean, if we're independent, I don't know. I you know, in the traditional,
it's a partnership.
It's a partnership, but it's hard for me to with that in the traditional music industry model. Sure, we're independent. We didn't sign with one of the majors. But from a business perspective,
It's major.
do I think that we're independent? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think we have massive funding partners. You know,
Operating at the same level.
operating at the same level. You know, I saw when we you know, we've always done very transparent deals. We did like a shorter term deal for No Love Lost, and that record just went crazy. You know, Chosen's on No Love Lost, all that stuff. But we were out, so we had the ability to go sign. And I think it's a telltale sign that we repartner with Red Bull. Yeah.
You like those short-term deals?
It's we call it the LeBron method. Like, you know, LeBron always does, like, you know, a 1 year or a player option.
Options.
Yeah, one year, and then like I'll do a player option. I think if you have that leverage to do that, then it behoove you probably to do 1 year with a player option. Yeah.
Especially if you feel like your operation's tight and it's working well, and you know you're confident in your ability to make great music too.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean,
and then you know, and then just getting on Kendrick's album randomly with.
You know, for context too, I mean, we have 10 full-time employees, right? Healthcare. We have an office in LA.
Yeah.
You know, we've invested in a bunch of companies. We're gonna invest in a bunch more. It's like I just want to show people the power of operation. Like, there's been a lot of moguls. There's been a lot of other stuff. There haven't been a lot of operators that have come from hip hop, and I think I view myself that way.
Yeah. There's not a lot of operators.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of operators. I mean, I would call myself an operator.
I think so.
I would call myself an operator.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
but
you are.
But I'm trying to like get away from operations a little bit, you know. And you talk about your team, you're like, oh, we got 10 people. You know, BeatStars, you know, for a long time didn't really have. I was like the sole executive by myself, you know, from an executive standpoint, the only, you know, and we're going through a moment now where we're hiring leadership, we're hiring, you know, amazing talent operationally, like, you know, product, you know,
y'all have
marketing.
a lot of people, man.
We're starting to, you know,
I get emails from people from BeatStars. I'm like, who is this dude?
That's good. But you can't win without a team, man. Yeah. That's just not possible. Yeah. It's not possible. You can't replicate yourself a million times, right? And it seems that you kind of the first moment you're able to like start adding more people to the team. Yeah. How were you intentional about that? Adding, like, how careful were you? How careful were you, like, you know, picking and choosing who's on your team and you know.
And you know, I'll give Vic this credit. I mean, Vic's put his, you know, whole blood, sweat, and tears in the Eagle, and you know that's why he's the president. And I think, you know, Vic's been very. He's a very putting people in business. I'm not that good at it, actually. That part of the game.
Yeah, me too. I suck at that.
I'm not good at. And you know, so
you got HR. You got head of HR, which is Vic.
Vic is the president / head of HR.
Head of HR.
You know. Okay. So you know, Vic's you know, he's that type of person. But I think the next level for us as a company though is you know, building, you know, a little bit more of a global and an operation that, you know, really gets the best people. And not to say that none of our people aren't the best. You know, we always, I genuinely would call them the best. But, you know, we want to be able to hire the young Harvard, you know, grad who just graduated. He wants to work in culture and, you know, build. We want to be competitive. We want the top talent, right? So I think that's just. To get the top talent, though, you know, you have to have, you know, the proper infrastructure and all that good stuff, brand recognition, all that.
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into it, man.
Yeah.
Good luck.
That's why a lot of people do these. You know,
good luck on that journey, man.
I love, you know, I think there's a lot of, money raisers and, these press releases and, I get it. Like, you need to scale your operation, you need the fund, but it also creates some momentum.
So what was y'all's reaction when the Kendrick opportunity happened though?
Yeah, it was obviously.
How did it happen?
Yeah, I think and Blxst has spoken about this, on record.
Yeah.
I think so basically just Kendrick reached out and said he wanted to share some ideas, and it just his ideas were shared and the song came out.
Sick, man. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album.
Yeah, and
so good.
Kendrick's a GOAT, man. I mean, he's really, even the next level, you see him with PG Lang and everything he's building. You're like, oh, I see. He's going in a direction that is about to be meteoric.
Stock price go up when that after that happened. You feel like
I feel like it did.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it is. I think we kind of just do the 2x to 5x thing. Like each year, we want that level of growth, and I think internally we all kind of speak that way. So maybe if it did externally, I don't think we felt it internally.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's cool. Independent artistry, relying just on the traditional ways of monetizing music is tough. You have
super tough.
Yeah, you gotta do partnerships elsewhere. You're building a team. How important are adding in all of these other partnerships to help kind of the brand grow? It's
what you have. You just hit it on the nail. I think there's only a few artists. And I'll shout out to Brent Fayez and his team. I mean, I think they're one of the few people who are completely, they're actually getting paid from their music and getting paid a lot. I think he did like 100 first week. So if you're an independent and you sell 100,000 copies first week, yeah, that's when it starts being that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But for most people, even if you do have gold records, you do have platinum records, and your stuff streaming consistently, it can add up. Maybe you're doing 50,000 a day, and all that stuff starts adding up. But yeah, to scale, like to build a large scale operation, you're gonna need some a large inflection of cash. You also need to build more valuable IP, create more brand equity and awareness. So, I always talk about, even with producers, I'm like, the worst thing that was told to you guys was to be 100% behind the scenes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, worst thing. I don't know who started that narrative. Yeah,
brainwashed.
that is bad advice.
Stupid
advice, man.
Why?
Yeah, it didn't used to be like that. I feel like it didn't used to be that way.
Nah, man. Yeah. I don't know who I think, I'll be honest with you. I think it was the schools, the music schools. And I'm sorry, but the music making schools, the production schools, I think they always push this like behind the scenes producer narrative at the school. You're the behind the scenes engineer. You're behind the scenes production. You're the guy in the studio. You're not a brand. You're not an entrepreneur. And it's crazy. They're still teaching them that shit.
Yeah, I know.
They're still teaching them that shit at the schools, and they're not teaching them to build their own brands. And
because it hurts the negotiation. It's like if all you're contributing to, because I rep artists too, right? So I don't just rep, repping a balance of artists and producers. It's like it hurts the negotiation when, if you're a producer, you can't say you're adding any other value to that song other than I just produced, a beat, right? Like, which is super important. Producing a beat is super important, but there's a marketing need, there's a promo need, there is, this guy's out here performing the song all over the globe. There's a radio push, there's dollars being spent to make that record, that IP valuable. Right? And you really don't play a part in making that IP valuable.
Yeah.
You could. And there's people who do, and there's people who sort of, and that also gives you way more leverage at the time of, the producer agreement comes in. If you deserve that feature credit, or, you want to be on the cover art, all that stuff plays a factor.
You know who's like, I'm the biggest fan of right now in terms of like building a producer brand, and, is Hit Boy.
Yeah, he goes crazy, man. Yeah.
That guy just like, and it's crazy, and it's his approach is like an artist, and the artists he works with just boast about him and how great he is too. It's like it's a two-way street, and they're, and they talk about him as this. They have that type of respect of him as like a featured artist collaborator.
For sure.
And he's building his brand so well, and he's becoming a household name. He already is. I mean, but
even more so.
Even more so. He's still, because producers are always kind of still having, because they get hot on a project, right, and then they got to jump to the next project on who else to choose. And I love how he is kind of building a pipeline of projects. I think that's what I love about him most. I guarantee you, ask Hit Boy right now, he'll probably tell you, I've got my next 24 months, 36 months planned.
Yeah, dude's crazy,
man.
Out. Yeah, like I'm just the work product that comes out of people who operate like that. I'm always like, man, that's like, I think Kanye is like that too. Like, where it's just like, for how are you getting so much out? Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm not even talking about Kanye as an artist. I mean, just like from a product standpoint. It's just like the dude just says he's doing something. Now it's Donda Academy has like some of the best basketball talent in the country.
Yeah, man.
Like,
it's like when you hear him talk, he doesn't really talk about all these like products and ventures really so much, or he does, but he does it in passing. It's super quick, and it's just like,
or it's like scattered a little bit,
and then 2 months later, it's fully fleshed out.
Like Donda Academy's there, and So so Hit Boy kind of reminds me of that in a sense, where it's just like, he just always putting stuff out, in high quality.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you hear Kanye talk, I'm like, man, I don't believe you. You ain't dropping nothing. You're not going to drop that company or that product. No. And 2 months later, like, oh, he was telling the truth.
Yeah.
He wasn't just bullshitting the way he was talking.
People like that, I love that. Yeah.
Okay, so, I want to get into sports stuff a little bit, if that's okay, because I know I follow your journey, man. I'm a fan. I love what you do. And when you announced that you were going to become an agent in the sports world, I know it's probably like still kind of a new venture for you to be a part of that.
Right.
Talk a little bit about the reasons why you wanted to get into the sports world, and how's it going?
Yeah. So I would say I'm a basketball first person. I mean, I grew up playing basketball. I played AU basketball. Played competitive high level high school basketball in Jersey. And so I thought basketball was, if it wasn't gonna be architecture, I thought basketball.
Was you a point guard?
I was a point guard who didn't pass much. Like a new age, like a lot of these combo guards, like
combo. Everyone's a combo guard.
Everyone's exactly.
Yeah, everyone's a combo guard.
I always say in my hometown, I say I was the first combo guard.
Yeah.
I used to market myself as like a combo guard. So I always thought basketball was it.
Who did you model your game after?
Who Drew Holiday. He was a guy who was he was in Philly for a while, and I was always like I liked Lou Will. I liked Drew Holiday and Lou Will. Lou would just get you buckets. He wouldn't do anything else. Just get you buckets.
Automatic. Just
awkward
off
game,
the bench, boom. No hard distance, tunnel vision.
Yeah. And I could dunk, but I was never.
Whoa.
I'm not a freak athlete. I'm a better athlete than. If you play basketball every day, you're gonna be a solid athlete.
All right, we just need somebody to pull up the highlights. Carl, we need to see something.
So but like Lou, when he could dunk, but he wasn't really trying to dunk on you. It was runners, mid range jumpers, stuff like that. So, but sports has been, a lot of the issues when you talk about the producer community and the artist community, it's the same sort. For me, I thought we need more operators in athletes, and I also think that like people from music might even be better to help artists capitalize in this new era, especially with NIL, to help these people monetize their brand. Because in music, you do it every day. That's like, how do you go on TikTok and make a video to help you, help galvanize your fan base? But like in sports, it's definitely less of a common. That's just not what was done in the past. You actually, your coach used to tell you, worry about the games, focus on the game, son. Like, and it's clearly not happening. That's not what's going to happen.
They're not one-dimensional no more. They're doing all kind of stuff.
Right. So for first, I just thought NIL was a great opportunity for me to come help people. And I work with a few athletes at the college level, and cool. It's very passive stuff. I mean, it's like, oh, you need to help yourself make some merch, or how do I start doing some of this stuff? And it's stuff that again we've been doing. If you're in the music side of the business, it's like, oh, this is like easy, like
right.
I think the
Just
goal
simple
though,
branding stuff. They weren't getting that. They weren't getting that kind of like advice.
Yep. And I think the goal for me, though, I think the next 5 to 10 years is kind of helping, the same way I've been doing it in the artist side, helping artists build their own companies and infrastructures. And I think about the likenesses of some of these athletes and how much so they were
now.
They're undervaluing their, I just saw the T-Macs are getting re-released, and I'm like, yeah, that's like if T-Mac would have knew that coming in, or at least early on, you know, the value of T-Mac's IP and some of the shoes and stuff he was creating, you know, I'm not sure what his likeness and his products make on a yearly basis now. I'm sure you know, it's a solid number, but like, man, it could be more. And I just want to help more athletes sort of in this new creator economy build their business. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting, man, because we've had college athletes who are also producers be really successful on a platform, but they could never say who they were.
Right.
They had to go under aliases.
Right.
And then one day, and then later on we find, like, if they go pro or they stop, you know, they stop playing ball or whatever, you know, we find out, oh wow, this dude was
I know a couple too.
Yeah, like, oh, this guy's plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, this guy.
I know, like,
you know what I'm talking about, right? So it's like, it's cool, man. It's cool to see that, you know, Kevin Durant makes beats. Yeah. Andre Drummond buys beats on BeatStars. We make packs for him. We give him beats. You know, he's Bagley.
I was gonna say Marvin Bagley.
Yeah, Bagley's always getting beats on a platform. And it's just so many artists so many athletes that are part of the music stuff, and I love how active they are. And yeah, man, they need representation on that stuff. They're not, you know, and then with the podcasting as well too. Like some of my favorite podcasts, and you know, it's from athletes. It's from athletes. Yeah, it's the best stuff,
it's the
dude.
Best content right now.
Like, and you know, during the bubble, your guy in Philly, what's his name? Tybal.
Oh, Matisse, yep.
Matisse Tybal had his, you know, behind the scenes kind of like vlogging throughout the bubble, and he was creating this great high quality content, and it was like interviews and like behind the scenes. It was dope as fuck, dude. It's
awesome. Yeah, there's so much like potential, like, for a lot of these guys to, like, you know, so I think squeezing the potential from some of these brands, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's like you think about your 5 or 6 year window of being hot and on top, or having the ability, because, you know, I don't know what the average NBA career is, but I'm sure it's closer to 3 or 4 or 5 years than it is to 11 or 15, right? So you think about those average, how do you squeeze the most from that? And, you know, you should be leaving the NBA or with a real built community, like, in a real brand and a real culture around yourself that you could take and build product or do whatever you want to do with that.
And they need help, right?
Yeah,
they need guidance.
Help.
They need guidance. So is there like a specific type of persona, specific type of athlete that when you're looking for?
Yeah, I think
that have potential to do all kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even about, you know, I think there's obviously, you know, you're looking for the most talented players, but really just the people with the minds that you want to help shape in a proper, like, you know, LeBron's a different animal. Like, and comparing anybody to what LeBron has done from a media, he's the Mount Rushmore of, I think, just creator economy in general. I mean, the dude has Spring Hill and puts out some of the best documentaries and films. That, like, you know, so his team, the way he's empowered his team, you know, it's hard to replicate. But I do think what he did show you was a lot of the avenues and arenas that, you know, that are unconventional can and should be done, and you have. And what you have the ability to do is, if you're an athlete, is to raise money in ways you're closer to a lot of capital. Like, so how do you get these ideas, put these ideas together, raise capital, and execute? So I think that's, you know, I want to help these guys do that.
Yeah, so many media brands wanting to do content partnerships with these athletes. It's awesome, man. I love the way it's good. What are some of your favorite podcasts that you listen to from the athlete side?
I don't know, JJ Redick's is pretty good. You know, what's the football guys? I think Channing. Yeah, Pivot.
The Pivot. The Pivot's amazing.
Yeah. That one's really good.
That's probably my favorite right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's high quality content, man. So I think those are good. And then All the Smoke.
All the
I
Smoke.
can't forget All the Smoke.
All the Smoke.
That's right. That's up there.
Matt and Stack are getting too comfortable right now. They're not the when they first came in, they were having these hungrier interviews, but they're becoming too professional now. But shout out to Matt and Stack, man. I love those guys too. Knuckleheads, you gotta watch.
Knuckleheads, yeah.
You gotta listen to Knuckleheads. There's some amazing athlete podcasts out there.
This is
so
this
good.
is for all the bad out there.
I love Draymond.
Oh, Drake, come on. How did I forget Draymond? That dude, Draymond, is the man. Yo, Draymond's hilarious.
Yo, he's such a leader, man.
Yeah. I think he's my favorite NBA player of all time. On court.
Sick.
Everyone always says he's going to be one of the, not worst Hall of Famers, but I think people question his Hall of Fame status. And I'm like, I don't want to say he did just as much for the game as Steph, because that's crazy. But when you talk about positionless basketball, guys who actually can guard the 5 and initiate the offense. I mean, we talk about a dude who averages almost, 10 assists and, but can actually guard 5s, right? Like, actually, there's a lot of people who say there's, in theory, that they can guard all 5. No, this guy can guard point guards and centers.
Bro,
So now everyone goes small ball in the playoffs and all this other stuff, and it's hard for me not to say that Draymond wasn't, one of the leading people who inspired that brand of basketball.
You know what I love about him the most, though? And I love his defensive prowess, of course. Put him on anyone, he's guarding you, regardless of position. The way he controls the tempo of the game and changes the tempo when it's needed to be changed, and gets he tells the superstars what pace we need to start moving at, or he tells the superstars what side of the floor we need to start working on. Like, the guy is when it comes to basketball IQ, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that. What he does, dude, he's literally a coach on the floor, and when he's not playing, dude, we suck. Yeah. We suck. So I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. I'm a Warriors fan, so I'm watching all that shit.
I saw. Yeah.
We finally got another. We got another one. We got another one. Yeah, man. So listen, we're getting close to the end here. Yep. We covered a lot of topics. I think we shared your journey. Congratulations on everything you're doing. I can't wait to continue to see the Operation the Eagle grow and go crazy, and all these amazing partnerships. But we still know you as the original producer lawyer. You know what I mean? Like, I love it. Nah, you know what I'm saying? You're always going to be ours. Yeah. You know what I mean? Regardless of all the big things you're doing, sports and artists, you're still going to be. We're going to claim you no matter what. Right. And I know the community is probably hanging on right now, just what is Abe going to ask this guy? Because I think, they always get this advice from you, and you're always putting out educational material, but on some real shit, what one or two things that you would tell producers that are, getting major placements now, dealing with major companies, but also building online businesses. What 2 pieces of things you would have them focus on right now, man, in terms of their careers?
I would say there's a lot of rhetoric, I think, in the producer community that says you don't need a manager, and you get an attorney, just handle your paperwork, and that. It's true, but I mean, a manager or someone on your admin, I think a lot of producers need admin help, just like the reality, like practicality of. So I think, embrace management in a way that will benefit your career, people who can help you get opportunities. But, even if it's more of an admin focus, I think you can't undervalue someone on your team helping you get your business organized across the board. So I think as you're looking for a manager, make sure that, they know, how to collect your royalties, not just here, but across the globe. Their liaison and all those important relationships, with BeatStars and whoever your publisher is, if you have one, and the artist team and your attorney. And obviously you'll still always be involved, but there's a real value add to that, because I think a lot of people I've been talking to think, an attorney is it. You can have the attorney just handle my paperwork. For some producers, it could work, but I think to really scale your operation, having another person on your team, and particularly, on the management side, would do you wonders. So, and then the last thing I would say is royalty collection, man. I mean, I think just know how, when, and where you should be getting paid. It's a very mundane or bad topic, but the amount of producers just don't know where their royalties are supposed to come from. It's just, at this point, it's like, come on, man. And there's a lot of info out there. So just really focus on where you're getting your money, and it'll help you in terms of forecasting revenue, what your BMI ASCAP check's gonna look like, what your royalties should look like, from your points, and all that info is just important info you to have. Yeah.
Amazing, man. I know you said, these copyrights, we're selling them, and like a lot of artists are selling them at big valuations, and there could have been so much lost potential on what they could be done. And so producers, like you said, like Karl said, understand the operation of your business, understand where all the opportunities are to leverage your music, and get out of the shadows.
Get out of the shadows.
Stop
trying to do it alone. Try to build a team, and there's a lot of earning potential out there for you. Yeah.
Karl, thank you so much for all the advice, awesome. Man, sharing your story, sharing your time with us, bro. We're thankful for you. Yeah. We needed you the last few years for the community.
Thank you, man. Trust me, appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate you, and thanks for being on the podcast, man.
Thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
We got the game in a chokehold. Not paying the creators is a no-no.